So here are the answers to the questions from the previous chapter. So why don't you pause the video, tick your answers off, and then go on to the next chapter, which is photosynthesis. The word equation for photosynthesis, carbon dioxide plus water, makes glucose and oxygen. The light provides the energy for this reaction, and the light is absorbed by chlorophyll, which is the green pigment that's found in chloroplasts. Limiting factors. Now, a limiting factor is any factor that can affect the rate of photosynthesis. For example, CO2 concentration, light intensity, and temperature. So this graph shows what happens when you increase temperature. Now, the bit of the graph that's going upwards shows that as temperature increases, the rate increases. So this means that it's temperature that's controlling or limiting the rate of photosynthesis. So we say on this part of the graph, temperature is the limiting factor. But once it reaches the optimum temperature, this is the best temperature for the enzymes to work, a greater increase in temperature doesn't continue to increase the rate of photosynthesis. So what happens there? Well, above and beyond the optimum temperature, photosynthesis stops completely because the enzymes in the cell which carry out the reaction are denatured. We'll go on to this in more detail later on, but that means that they stop working, the enzymes are destroyed. This graph shows the effect of increasing CO2 concentration on the rate of photosynthesis. So on the upward part of the graph, it's CO2 that's the limiting factor, because as CO2 increases, the rate increases, so the rate is limited by CO2. Once it reaches the optimum, no matter how much more CO2 you give the plants, they don't photosynthesize any faster, because there's another limiting factor. And that's the best phrase to use, another limiting factor. For example, it might be light intensity. And this graph shows the effect of light intensity. It's important to say light intensity, by the way, don't just say light, because that could mean duration of light, that could mean number of hours. So it's light intensity. So as light intensity increases, the rate increases. So that must mean, in the first part of the graph, that light intensity is the limiting factor. But beyond the certain point, no matter how much more light you give it, it doesn't make any difference to the rate of photosynthesis. There's another limiting factor. For example, CO2. Here's a commonly used experiment. To measure the rate of photosynthesis, you put a piece of pondweed in a test tube of water, and then shine a light on it, and you can count the bubbles that come out the cut end of the stem. You'll see this test tube has been placed in a water bath. All a water bath is a beaker of water, and the water bath there is to absorb some of the heat energy coming out of the lamp so that the temperature in the water doesn't go up. So glucose is the product of photosynthesis, so what does the plant do with the glucose? Well, it may use it up straight away in respiration. Or, if it's not going to use it straight away, it might convert it into something else. For example, it might convert it into starch for storage, or fats and oils for storage. It might convert the glucose into cellulose to make the cell walls which strengthen the cell, or it might convert it into proteins which it uses for growth, and to make proteins it's going to need nitrates from the soil. You need to be able to think about the economics of photosynthesis. A lot of people make their living out of growing food crops. Some of them grow them in greenhouses, and so they need their plants to grow as fast as possible because they need to make money out of it. So what they might do is enhance the temperature or the CO2 levels or the light intensity in their greenhouses. But they'll only do that if it's profitable. They'll have to look very carefully at how much it costs to provide all these things and balance it against how much faster their food crops grow and how much they can sell them for. They'll only do it if it means they can make more money. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Here's some test questions to check your understanding.